Evening and welcome to Physio First's webinar on providing and promoting your online physiotherapy service alongside your face-to-face clinic. My name is Susanna Salt and I'm the community representative, or in old money, the regional officer for the Midlands. And joining me as co-host, I have Lucinda Brock, who is the regional officer for Oxfordshire. I'll just let her say hello.
Hi everybody. I am the regional officer for Oxfordshire and also the community representative. And it's great to see you all here tonight.
Thanks, Lou. So just whilst we're waiting for everybody to be able to join the webinar, I just wanted to mention that we are using the question and answer function, which you'll find at the bottom of your page, depending on your laptop or the device you're using. With that, you can post your questions in there, and you'll also notice that when other people are posting questions, there will be a thumbs up sign next to it. So if you like the question that they're posting and you would like to hear that answer too, please click on it and it will upvote. And that way we can make sure that we're targeting the questions that are most relevant to most people. There will be lots of opportunities for questions and answers through the course of the evening, so hopefully all your questions will be answered. But just while we're thinking about questions, I also want to mention that please could you keep your questions related to this evening's topic, as we don't want to stray off into other areas of physio or COVID or PPE or anything else. If you have other questions about other matters, then please use the LinkedIn forum, the Physio First private members LinkedIn forum, where there's lots of expertise to help you out there. So. Oh, I also just want to mention actually the chat function. So we can use the chat function, but if you post your questions there, we can't use the upvote function. So please put any questions in the question and answer part. So in a moment, I'm going to be introducing Gerard Greene to you. But before we do that, I just wanted to say just how grateful we are to Gerard. He's a good friend of Physio First, and we really appreciate all that he's done for us this evening in putting this together. And he's also brought along two of his colleagues, Lorna Saunders and Gemma West, who you'll be meeting in a little while. So again, huge thanks to them for their contributions this evening. We really do appreciate it. So just before I introduce Gerard, let's hear from Karen Lay, our chairman, just for a few moments. Thanks, Karen.
Hi, Susanna, and hello, everybody, and thank you very much, Susanna, for that introduction. I know we're all keen to get on with the webinar, but I'm just going to steal a few minutes of this valuable time to touch base with you all before we go into the webinar. And I'm just going to share my screen with you to do that while I'm chatting. There we are. So, it's great to see so many members and a few non-members join us for this webinar. I'd like to add my thanks to Gerard for offering to do this for Physio First free of charge, and I'm sure we'll all enjoy the next 2 hours and take away lots of good ideas and the confidence to put them into practice. Our Physio First community strives constantly to support our members and to champion private practice wherever and whenever we can. In fact, we've had a very firm intent to do exactly that since 2013, and this remains the rock on which we build our community. All of our volunteer post holders and office team acknowledge and share the challenges that we've all faced over the last few months, both in our businesses and personally, and we hope that you feel during this time Physio First has been an essential community to which you could turn for evidence-based guidance and peer-to-peer friendship and support. Our real aim as a member-led organisation and the only private practice professional network of the CSP is to provide everything you need to become a thriving provider of demonstrable quality private physiotherapy within a strong, influential and trusted community. Trust has been a big element of our communications during this pandemic and will continue to be. We've been working hand in glove with teams at the CSP to make sure that our information has been accurate, timely and pragmatic. We know that many members have appreciated this, as well as our efforts to represent private practice to government in our lobbying activity, together with other like-minded healthcare and non-healthcare organisations. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everyone involved, namely our volunteer post holders, our office team, and our members, many of whom have taken time out of their lives to say thank you, and it's most appreciated by us all. Each set of updated guidance and its interpretation is discussed in detail and communicated in a way that we know has been appreciated, however hard the guidance has been to swallow sometimes. At this stage, where there's hopefully an easing of measures in some places, we now find ourselves being able to turn our attention once again to encouraging participation in our quality assured practitioner and quality assured clinic schemes because of their importance to the future of private physiotherapy. It is central to our plans and ambitions to make these schemes understood and recognised in the wider marketplace, and for them to be of value to our patients, thus helping to benchmark, promote and drive our businesses forward. It feels so important to be able to say out loud that our members who are brave enough to have their outcomes measured by a third party in the University of Brighton are actually good at what they do and can demonstrate this easily with these kite marks. If you're not yet collecting data, please do make a start, as there's never been a better time to demonstrate your quality to your patients and potential patients. And we're working on some evidence-based infographics and straplines that our data inputters can use to explain their quality. So please watch out for these. As businesses work hard to reboot and remain viable, our trusted community will become more and more important to our members. Where else can you take part in such a robust, recognised and respected quality scheme and receive real-time information and guidance on a regular basis? I don't need to remind you about our journal, In Touch, which we know from many surveys is hugely valued, and we are now examining our education provision and webinars like this one, which may become part of our new normal as an organisation. I know I'm blowing our own trumpet, and actually I make no apologies for doing that. I'm proud to lead this committed team of volunteers, employees and members who together are Physio First, a trusted and influential community of self-employed private physiotherapists, bonded by a shared passion for demonstrable quality. So I'm going to, that's me, finished, hopefully just in under 5 minutes, and I'm going to hand you back to Susanna now for the business part of the evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Karen. So I'd like to introduce you to Gerard. Gerard, would you be happy just to say a little bit about yourself and where you're based and the kind of patients you see, the kind of work you do?
Yeah, so first of all, a really big thanks to Karen and the Physio First committee for inviting myself and my colleagues to deliver this webinar. I'm really proud to do so. A really big thanks also to Susanna and Lucinda, who've been really amazing to work with because it's been effortless. We haven't had to do anything really. We've just had to have one Zoom meeting with them and then turn up tonight and everything is just, you know, so a really big thanks to them, because I know it takes a lot of work in the background to set these things up. So we really appreciate their efforts. I will introduce Susanna and Lorna and Gemma as we go along. I'll do that in a few minutes. And I'd also like to thank Karen just for the leadership that she's shown to the whole kind of physio community in the UK and Physio First, because I think, you know, personally, returning to practice has been a lot easier with the really clear guidelines, although as she said, challenging, that but we've had those guidelines to follow. So really big thanks to Karen and her team for that. And I know that hasn't been easy. I don't know how these people actually function, because they must be just getting messages and emails and meetings all the time. So I'm based in Birmingham. I do two things. I'm a lecturer in Coventry University. I do that on a Monday and Tuesday. And then on the rest of the time, so kind of Wednesday to Friday, I work in one of my physiotherapy clinics in central Birmingham and Harborne, quite near Birmingham University. And there, my main interest is pelvic health physiotherapy, and personally mine is particularly male pelvic health physiotherapy. And we see a lot of kind of complex male patients, but we also see lots of patients who are issues relating to pregnancy, postnatal, female pelvic health, children, bowel and bladder. But we also see kind of traditional musculoskeletal sports patients as well. And as I go through the webinar, they're the kind of patients that we really had to reach online. We had to kind of reach those patients online. And then outside of that, I am involved in kind of training education, particularly around pelvic health physiotherapy. And also they had those courses and events had to all be cancelled really, which was quite devastating. And they were kind of rebirthed, so to speak, online, which was a very positive experience. So that's kind of what I do. So will we ready to go then, Susanna?
Yes, please go ahead. That's great. Thanks, Gerard.
Okay, so first of all, I'd like to say a massive thank you to Lorna. I've kind of delved into the COVID physiotherapy Facebook support group, or I'm not sure the correct title of that is, a therapist support group, but it's done amazing work. And I think a post stood out for me many weeks ago. It was about the work that Lorna was doing online. So Lorna is based in Stoke, and Lorna is a kind of adult and pediatric neurological physiotherapist in private practice. So her and her colleagues see kind of complex pediatric adult neurological patients. And she said that not only was she seeing these patients online, but her whole kind of clinic business model had changed in that, you know, now that she was back seeing patients face to face, but that they were planning to really not only maintain some of the online work, but they were going to do a lot of online work. And that really jumped out at me, that if you can see those really complex neurological patients online, you can kind of see anything online. So that really inspired me to kind of find out a bit more about what Lorna did. And then when I knew I was doing this, I thought, well, a really brilliant person to speak would be Lorna, because I think personally, I want to find out how she's done that as well. So a big thanks to Lorna. And if people want to connect with Lorna, she's on Twitter, on Facebook, so you can kind of tweet to her, find her on Facebook. That's her website. And Lorna is going to speak to you kind of around 8 o'clock. A big thanks to Gemma. I kind of have known Gemma for some time. Gemma is a very specialist kind of pregnancy, postnatal female pelvic health physiotherapist based in Aylesbury, and we've kind of crossed paths on kind of various pelvic health physiotherapy events, and we kind of connect in Facebook, where there's a very strong pelvic health community. And what I saw that Gemma was doing was she had kind of moved all her classes online. So her kind of postnatal exercise classes, and I had kind of noticed that she'd put up lots of kind of some kind of client or patient reviews of those. And then from kind of finding out what Gemma was doing, she also had decided that her kind of model was going to be that she was going to kind of maintain those classes online, because there were many benefits of doing that. And also that she was going to kind of grow and develop that part of her clinic. So in addition to seeing, a bit like myself, in addition to seeing kind of pelvic health patients online, her big thing was that she is someone who had kind of demonstrated that expertise, experience in moving those classes online, keeping them online, and deciding to grow them. So Gemma is going to speak to us about kind of 7:40. Gemma's on a bit of a tighter timeline because she's got a little 2.5-year-old. Someone is minding the 2.5-year-old, but so she's got, and I was keen really that Gemma would kind of talk about that, because there will be, you know, lots of people here in private practice who run classes. Some people will have shifted those online, some won't, and some people are thinking, well, how do I do that? And a bit like the work Lorna does, you know, from a personal perspective, I kind of want to know how she's done that. I think when you start to do online work, or it may be that something that you've done since March, something that you're doing a bit of, at some point you've got to work really hard to kind of get that message out to all of those patients that you're doing it, because otherwise it's quite a lonely place. So in theory, anyone can do this, but it takes a lot of kind of strategizing to really get those patients in volumes, that they know you're doing this. And I think what I've used quite heavily in the clinic is the existing platforms that we had, so that we probably historically did a lot on Facebook. We probably now still do a lot on Facebook, but we probably do a lot more on Instagram. We probably don't do that much on Twitter, do a little bit, but I think in terms of getting that awareness out that we do online physiotherapy, that our physiotherapy clinic is open, we have pushed that heavily through our Instagram feed. We have really connected with some people who've got big Instagram feeds to drive ours. We'll talk about that later. And we've tried to connect with people on Facebook just to really drive our feeds. So almost kind of seeing who are some of the key influential people there to try and get some leverage through them. So these are the women that we were seeing in clinic. We saw a lot of patients who were issues with pregnancy, a lot of postnatal, a lot of female pelvic pain, a lot of return to sport, but also women who had nothing to do with pregnancy, postmenopausal, sporting related pelvic pain. So they were kind of the women that we kind of needed to hold on to, because we were, when at the start of March, we were really, really busy. It looked like we were at that stage where we were really busy, things were going really well, and then suddenly chaos. So we had to try and work out, well, how do we reach those women online? And we were also seeing lots of female pelvic, kind of male pelvic health. We were seeing lots of male pelvic pain, and probably about 80% male pelvic pain, smaller number post-prostatectomy. And then at that point, all of those men came to the clinic. We would see the very odd one online, very occasional, but all of those men came to the clinic. However, some of those men back then were traveling quite significant distances. So although we're in Birmingham, we would have seen quite a lot of men from South Wales, kind of the Northwest, down around Oxfordshire, Manchester, Leeds. So people would travel 2-3 hours. And in a way, COVID was good for us in that we started to pick up much more male pelvic health from all over the place. So the amount of male pelvic health we did actually stayed pretty consistent, but we saw bigger numbers of men from kind of all over the UK. And then we do some pediatric bowel and bladder. Probably didn't do as much of that online. And then a bit like a lot of people here, we have brilliant physios who do musculoskeletal and sports, and we saw those patients online too. So this is a good friend of mine, Tony, who's one of our yogis, and she's gave us some beautiful photos about 4 years ago when she had her baby. And so the people we needed to reach were kind of people like Tony, who were either pregnant, postnatal, female pelvic health, male pelvic health, or those traditional musculoskeletal sports patients. And we also did a lot of mummy MOT work. So Gemma will talk about this. This is like it's like a very detailed physiotherapy postnatal check. So we had to work out, well, kind of with Maria Elliott, who's a good friend of mine who designed it. So how would we do that without really putting an ultrasound probe on the patient? How would we do that without palpating them? How could we assess that? But we kind of thought, well, we've worked really hard to build a really good reputation for ourselves. We've worked hard to build, so we're not going to let that go. So we kind of just decided, well, we will work out how to do this. Our response to COVID, a bit like most people, was utter despair, real despair. The clinic really lost its energy. Things were pretty grim, but then at some point you need to work out how to respond. So first thing we did really was we cancelled a lot of courses, but I'm really proud of the fact that every course we cancelled, which were quite a few, we kind of refunded everybody. You know, we didn't do the voucher system like the airport, so we kind of refunded everyone. We decided we'd start again, and so we kind of started to move those courses online. I think I was fortunate. I've worked in Coventry for a long time, so we had quite a lot of experience of doing that from the university. And we moved online. Really, we moved online because we kind of had to, because, you know, there is a financial reality of not working, and a bit like everyone here, physios tend to be hardworking people. We're passionate about what we do, so kind of doing nothing wasn't really an option. So we kind of moved online. One, because we had to. We had a lot of patients who still wanted to see us, but also I think we as physiotherapists like to kind of have a challenge, and we like to see how we can kind of respond when things are difficult. I think a lot of my experience of online work was probably associated with the university in Coventry, which I've worked a long time. And being a new university, we'd always done quite a lot of kind of online learning. So that was really useful. But I think my experience of online physio was probably a bit mixed. In Coventry, we'd done a lot of Skype interviews, which are a bit different from patient assessments. But so I'd use Skype quite heavily, but Skype then is quite variable. Sometimes it was brilliant, sometimes it was horrendous. Sometimes you could find someone on Skype, sometimes you couldn't. It would work. So I kind of thought, well, you know, I couldn't really see myself doing lots of patient consultations on Skype where it might work, it might not work. So then we decided that we would, a bit like everybody, we would use Zoom. And Zoom really was a bit for a lot of the stuff we all do, was a real lifesaver in that hadn't used Zoom before, trained up in it, started using it quite heavily. First thing we thought was an ultrasound imaging course. It kind of dropped in at the deep end because that's an 80% practical course, but myself and Maria delivered that online. We recorded lots of it. The week up to it was intensely stressful because it wasn't clear how we were going to teach that course because lots of things didn't work. But by the time the Saturday came, it went like clockwork because we probably learned a lot from doing that, got really good feedback. And that kind of then up until we ran my probably 14th one last weekend for the MACP. So those courses just got better, got really good feedback, grew, kind of took on momentum of their own. But I think what I was really keen to do is to try and use anything we did to really promote the clinic. So if we ran a course on male pelvic health, on pregnancy postnatal, on breast health around lactation, we use that to really promote the clinic and really promote that we were doing online appointments. So we tried to really build our online clinic, probably starting quite early on in probably about April time, kind of a week of lamenting and feeling sorry for myself, but then we kind of got stuck into this. I'll talk through how we did that, how we built that clinic and how we got those patients in a couple of minutes. But some tips, and what I'd really like you to do probably in the chat function is to really put in what worked for you. I think what I learned was that you really need very good IT. You either need a very powerful laptop or you need a Mac, because otherwise the camera's not great, the internet drops in and out, the sound isn't great. Connecting into the modem was a bit of a game changer really, because that meant you never dropped out. It's 100% reliable, both for patients and teaching. The experience was much better. So from going from a laptop, which was okay, to a Mac or an iMac into the modem, completely different experience. It's quite good, I think, to do it outside of clinic, because if you do it outside of clinic, you free up that clinic space, and that's particularly relevant now. So I try and do all my online stuff on a Friday, So there are other people in the clinic. So I'm not sitting in a clinic room doing online appointments when one of my colleagues could be seeing patients in there. So I think it's good to probably remove that from the clinic space. So that frees up a clinic room where you can have someone else in there seeing patients. It's good to cluster. I think now that we're back in face-to-face, it's good to cluster those appointments so that you've got maybe a morning of online appointments. And I think Lorna does this. You've got maybe a morning of online appointments, you've got a day of online appointments. But what is very disruptive and can be quite stressful is you've got a patient in from 9 to 10 in the clinic. You've then got to maybe link up on an iPad or a tablet, and it's not really the best device for this. And then you've got to go back and see another. So I think clustering them is good. It's good to look good on camera. Look, we always look professional. No one's ever late, so you've got to be on time. I think we made them very interactive. So if I was if say Karen was the patient and I was talking to Karen, I would kind of share some stuff on YouTube, maybe relating to her low back pain or whatever condition she is. I would link to the exercise software. I would talk her through that. I would link to some of our educational stuff on the website. So a lot of it is myself talking to Karen, doing the assessment, but then when we get to the management part, it becomes much more interactive. And Zoom lets you do that. It's a bit like we're doing now. It's quite easy to screen share. It's got to be very interactive and linking to resources that you're happy to use, ideally ones you've created yourself. And patients really love that. And I think now that I'm back in clinic, I kind of miss that, because if I want to teach a patient to do some abdominal soft tissue work themselves or some pelvic floor work, I've kind of got to talk them through that. Whereas on the online, if it's an online appointment, I will just put it up, play the video, stop that video, say, this is what you're going to do, I'll send you a link. I think, going online was difficult because we're not used to doing that. As a profession, we're not used to doing that. The public aren't used to it. So we were trying to promote and sell something that no one had really ever done before. I think it's good to accept that it is not a face-to-face appointment, and it's completely different, but it's not a poor alternative. So it's not like a second-rate appointment. It's an online appointment, so it's different, but it's not, you're not trying to replicate, because people get quite stressed. Well, how can I do an objective assessment? You don't do an objective assessment. You might do some objective assessment, but you're not doing a face-to-face appointment. It's very different. The ones that I've done, and that tended to be a lot of male pelvic pain, pregnancy postnatal stuff, and musculoskeletal. The real focus is on that subjective questioning. That's what we're very skilled at. That's what separates us from the chiropractors, the osteopaths, the sports service. We have a lot of expertise at that questioning, hypothesis formation, pain mechanisms, clinical reason. That's what we excel at. That separates us out from the rest. And that forms the kind of bulk of this assessment. You then do a lot around advice, education, whether it's behavior change, getting people active, cognition. You do a lot of that. Ideally, you make it interactive. You link to some stuff on maybe YouTube, your website. We use Rehab Guru, whatever you use. You do some objective, but I've seen lots of patients, I've done no objective, but it worked fine. The appointment went really well. And then I think some people think, well, is it a one-off appointment? So if I see Karen for an appointment, is that it? Well, it's not it. You rebook them like a normal patient. So you say, okay, this is what I want you to do. I want to see you in a week's time. I want to see you in 2 weeks' time. So it's not like you see them one-off. You keep that patient as a normal clinic patient. And then we would normally follow those up with, we would email them a summary. What works really well is you record the appointment. So you say to the patient, are you happy for me to record this? Or maybe you record the management bit. So I probably record maybe the second bit where you're talking, explaining what's going on, what you want them to do, demonstrating what you want them to do. So I would say to them, are you happy for me to record this? I'll send you the recording. And they love that because they've got a video recording of what you want them to do. Really helps adherence, engagement. They think you're amazing because you've done that. And it's easy to, on Zoom, it's easy to do. In terms of building the clinic, and I got some really good advice from a good friend of mine, Adrian Wagstaff, who's another private practitioner. So the website, so the web guy just completely changed the website, that it looked like this was now an online physio clinic. So when you came to the web page, it said, we're now offering online appointments during COVID. We had a nice video explaining what an online appointment was. We had a link into the booking, the TM2 booking page was all online. So when you went to book an appointment, you could book an online men's health appointment. You could book an online mummy MOT. You could book an online female pelvic health and online musculoskeletal. And now what we've done is we've changed that again, so you can book a face-to-face appointment or an online appointment. We also got patients that we saw online to write about it. So we started to get, so we would see a patient, would say, well, you know, you've had an appointment, this is quite new. Can you just write something for us, what your experience was? And they were quite reassuring for other patients because we just shared those everywhere. So when you went to the website, it looked like this was an online physio clinic. Whereas the plan is, when the web guy gets it done, the next thing is it looked like almost like a hybrid clinic of face-to-face, brilliant, online, brilliant. And I'll share some of these later after Gemma and Lorna. We kind of did a lot in promoting the fact that we were online everywhere. We did lots on our Instagram feed. We did lots on Twitter. We did lots on Facebook. We did lots of blogs, so Google would pick them up. So our Google recognition would be higher. So if someone put in an online physio appointment, Google would pick up that we did that. And then we let our database know via MailChimp that this is what we were doing. So, and I think this is really important that no matter what you do, whether you're promoting a face-to-face clinic or an online clinic, if people don't know you're doing it, they aren't going to find you. And I think sometimes as physiotherapists, we have this reluctance to really promote the amazing work we do. And we do amazing work. And we can kind of go through some of those platforms later. And we've always tried to collect Google reviews. And what we then did was, some of the early patients we saw, we would say to them, you know, can you write a Google review about your online appointment? So someone would write a Google review, and then we would share that everywhere. We would share that on the local Facebook groups, on a lot of the, if it was a pregnancy postnatal one, we would share it on the pregnancy postnatal groups. If it was a male pelvic health one, we would share it on the male pelvic health forums, the prostate cancer groups. We kind of spread, we got the review, we formatted it, we put it, we kind of linked, we stuck it on the website, we kind of linked it as many places. And then we got the patient blogs, so they write a bit of an overview. We shared those heavily as well. I'll maybe leave the second stage to maybe after the others speak. This second stage, and I think this is really what transformed the amount of work we did. So I kind of just picked people and did some Zoom interviews with them. So I picked someone who's maybe a postnatal physio specialist, or a tummy gap specialist, or someone who is a pregnancy specialist. So I interviewed them, mainly around kind of, you know, challenges of being pregnant during COVID, challenges of having a baby during COVID, We recorded those nice and short, with a real clinical feel to them. And then we put those on YouTube and we shared those heavily. Google picks them up. They're on the website. They're all over our Instagram Live. They're on our YouTube. So we did a lot of those, and they were, they had zero cost, but they had a lot of impact. But I'll talk through who we did those with maybe afterwards, because I'm mindful that we need Gemma in on time. So maybe before Gemma speaks, shall we take a couple of questions, Susanna?
Yes, so I've just been looking at the list of questions, but they actually are more comments than questions, in fact, so far. We've got a comment that from Jill that exercise prescription software was the game changer for her, and being able to share exercise videos. So I guess that's really echoing what you were saying just now about that.
And I think there's a question there about the charging. So now we charge the same. We now charge, so it's the same for a male pelvic health appointment online is the same as an in-clinic one. The musculoskeletal, that's all the same. During COVID, initially we charged less, not a lot less, but we did charge less. I think that was a learning experience. I think in hindsight, we shouldn't have charged less, but I think that was an unknown. But I think if I was doing it again, I would charge the same. I think the reason we didn't was it was completely new to us. We didn't charge a lot less, but we did charge less. Now, whether you have an appointment face-to-face or an online appointment, it's the same amount.
Shall we just have a look at the how do you send the video of advice question, because it's such a big file. So how do you get around that one, Gerard?
Yeah, so what I do is I send them the Zoom link. I either send them the Zoom link, or what I've also done, which works probably easier, is I've got a paid Google Drive, which isn't very much. I think it's about, I don't know, 30, 40 pounds. So I would upload, so Zoom records it. You upload, these are they're relatively small files for a Google Drive. So, because they're only going to be about 25 minutes long. So you upload to the Google Drive, and then you send the patient the link to the Google Drive. And they're the only person who sees that.
Okay, that's great, thank you. And a question that's just struck me, which was really, how much do you think that the success that you've had is because you have a fairly niche area? Are your MSK physios, is that area of your practice doing as well? Or do you think it's because you can, for pelvic health, there's less physios around doing that, so you can draw in through a wider area?
Yeah, so I think my interest is pelvic health. So the time that I spend promoting the clinic is heavily on pelvic health. But despite that, we have a busy musculoskeletal component to the clinic. So despite the absence of any work on my part, we see lots of musculoskeletal patients. Promoting the clinic online, I heavily promoted pelvic health because that's kind of my interest. But we still saw a lot of musculoskeletal stuff. So and I'll talk about this later on. So even this week, last week, we still saw some musculoskeletal online, but for different reasons. So I think that it's probably easier to promote a niche, but the problem about a niche is sometimes it's so niche that you've got to work hard because no one knows you do it, or no one knows that physios do it. And I'm going to talk about this later, is that a lot of people within musculoskeletal do very specialized stuff, but sometimes because it's quite normal for them to do that, they don't realize how specialized they are. So they should be kind of trying to reach out of their local community to see patients from a much wider geographical area.
That's really interesting. I'm sure that's true.
I think what we probably will do is let's go to Gemma. Is that okay, Susanna?
Yeah, let's do that.
So thank you very much to Gerard for inviting me along this evening. So I first met Gerard back in 2016, I think it was, on the Mummy MOT training course. I've since done a couple of Gerard's courses that he's run since then. I've done a manual therapy and pregnancy course with him, and a dynamic taping course, and also an ultrasound course. So we've kind of seen each other kind of along the way over the last few years. So yeah, I was very grateful to Gerard for asking me to speak tonight. So Gerard's asked me to kind of talk to you guys about three main things. He wanted me to kind of talk about the reasons why I moved my classes that I run online. He wanted me to talk about a little bit about how I did it and any top tips that I might have for you. So for me, the why part was really easy because all my patients were cancelling. I work in the NHS as well as private practice. So I do kind of 18.5 hours in the NHS, but then the rest of my income's all kind of based on my self-employed work. So when you're self-employed and suddenly all your patients are cancelling because they're too scared to come into clinic, they're too scared to come into the gym for their classes, you kind of have to think on your feet. So a lot of my patients were cancelling. I think the last class that I did face-to-face was the 21st of March. I was due to have 7 ladies in my class that day for my pregnancy class, and I ended up with 2. So everyone else had kind of cancelled. They didn't want to come in, they didn't want to come out, they wanted to stay home, which was fair enough. So I then kind of had all the emails coming in from people asking for a refund, asking if they could put their subscription on hold, if you like. And I just kind of thought, what am I going to do? I need this money. So I'd heard this word Zoom kind of that had been started to be kind of talked about, had no idea what it was. But I know a couple of kind of colleagues had started looking into it for classes that they run. And I just completely blagged it. So for the first week, what I did was for the ladies that didn't attend the classes, I recorded the video of me doing the class, and I then WhatsApped it to all the patients, all my ladies that were due to come into class. And I kind of just very matter of fact kind of said to them, this is the recording for today's class. As of next week, this is my plan. And my plan was the class was going to continue, the same ethos behind it, but it will be on Zoom. And I only then lost one lady. Everyone else was kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, we're happy to give Zoom a go. We don't really know what it is either, but let's give it a whirl. So I then thought, oh gosh, I'm running classes on Zoom in 5 days' time. I don't even know what Zoom is. So I downloaded Zoom Pro, so that'd be my first top tip. And I just had to play around with it. I just sat there, I got familiar with it, I logged in, and I just kind of really got thrown in the deep end. So by the time my class came around on that first Saturday morning, so the 28th of March, I delivered my first 2 classes over Zoom. And I blagged it. I said, oh yeah, I've been using it all week. It's really good. It works really well. It's really interactive. And I just sold that it was the best thing ever. And you really should carry on doing your classes with me because actually it works really well. And it did work really well. So I started doing my classes on the 28th of March. I carried on doing them. I've been doing them the whole time. I had 1 week off for annual leave. And I've actually now increased the number of classes that I've been doing. So when I worked in a gym, it was quite a small gym attached to the physiotherapy practice that I work at. But it was quite a small gym, so I only had a limit of 10 ladies in the class. And I was finding that my postnatal mums, they didn't have the commitments with their young children anymore. They didn't have ballet to go to on a Saturday morning. They didn't have to take Johnny swimming. So the mums were then about to be able to attend the class. So I do the Mummy MOT, which Gerard kind of mentioned earlier. So it's a really in-depth kind of postnatal assessment. And I'd kind of teach the exercises. And one of the reasons that I started teaching the classes is that I found I was giving a lot of exercises, a lot of patients the same exercises, because most ladies, they get tummy muscle separation, they get pelvic floor weakness, their breathing goes out of whack. So I was giving a lot of the same exercises to the same people, and I thought actually this would be really nice to develop a class and kind of go through all the postnatal recovery exercises in that class. So with the classes, so with the mummy MOTs, whenever I'd kind of speak about their classes to my patients, they'd always be like, oh yeah, the classes sound brilliant, when are they? A Saturday morning. Oh, we can't do a Saturday morning. But suddenly, because everything else was cancelled, the mums could do a Saturday morning. So yeah, the classes went really well. I carried on doing my mummy MOTs online, as Gerard mentioned earlier. I find a lot of that assessment, it's looking at posture, it's looking at how someone's moving. So even if someone's got back pain, you can easily stand and get them to stand in front of you and see how they're moving. You can get them to turn around so they've got their sacroiliac joints in front of the camera, so you can again see how they're moving. You can see their stability. You can see how they compensate standing on one leg with their single leg stand. You can get them to lie down on the floor with their laptop or their iPad in front of them, and you can watch what happens in their middle when they do an active straight leg raise. You can talk them through the test for tummy muscle separation. You can see that doming when you do that head and shoulder lift. So I was really lucky, and I found that I was still getting the mummy MOT assessments coming in and seeing them regularly. So because I had them coming in, I still had a nice kind of trickle of patients that I could kind of give my class information to. So yeah, the mums were loving it and carried on doing the classes, and I had new people signing up, and like I say, I had to put on new classes to kind of accommodate the new inquiries that I was having. Also, I found that obviously geographic location then didn't matter. I had patients come from London, so I'm based in Aylesbury in Buckinghamshire. I had patients come from London, I had patients come from Derby, I had patients from Leicester kind of joining that class. So I've always kind of liked the emphasis of my class being that you could meet local mums to be or local new mums, but suddenly there was this new element to it. And initially I was kind of like, oh, do I accept them? Do I want to keep it local? But then we kind of thought, well, I thought you don't know how long this whole lockdown is going to go on for. So I kind of thought, no, we'll do it. Whoever wants to join can come. So the how was kind of, I just downloaded Zoom and got on board and just had to kind of go with the flow. Top tips would be, I know people that do exercise classes, and it's very much the participants have to have their camera turned off, they have to have their mic turned off, and it's just you watch the class instructor doing the class and you do it along, they do it along at home. For me, I've always found, or I like the social aspect or the networking aspect to the classes. So before I started doing them on Zoom, we'd always kind of have a chat through things at the start of the session. We'd have a chat in the break. We'd have a chat afterwards. The ladies got to know each other. They'd go down the road for coffee afterwards. And they've always been very, very social classes. And I was keen for the ladies that came to the class to still get that bonding with other people in the same situation with them, same pregnant ladies, same postnatal ladies. I wanted them to get that bonding. So I've always encouraged my ladies to keep their cameras on, keep their microphones on, and we talk. So the class starts, I do a class on a Tuesday evening at 7:45, but the Zoom invite is always open 10 minutes before that, so we can log on. There's no pressure. If people want to come and have a chat for 10 minutes before the class, they do. Other people literally log on at 2 minutes after the class should have started, and they're straight into it. And then again at the end, it's open for another 10 minutes. So people have got that kind of flexibility, that freedom. They can chat if they want to. And it's always the same people. They're there 10 minutes beforehand, and you just know they want that interaction and that kind of offloading that we know our patients kind of need sometimes. So for me, the social aspect is really important. So I really would encourage you, if you're thinking about doing classes, think about that side of things. So cameras on, mics on, encourage that kind of networking and that communication. And I also set up a WhatsApp group for each of my classes, so the class members can then kind of communicate with each other outside of the class. And I'm kind of still admin on the groups, and I've got a load of my ladies meeting up tomorrow for a socially distanced walk. So it's really nice that the ladies that are local are kind of starting to meet up now. We are kind of getting out and about a little bit more. So that's kind of, yeah, my really important tip, I think, of how I kind of sell my classes is that networking. When it came to pricing structure, I decided to keep all my charges the same. So for the mummy MOTs, the pregnancy assessments that I do, the women's health assessments that I do, I kept my prices the same. And same with my classes, I kept the classes the same price. I kind of clinically, I justified that they're paying for my time. So although you could debate that possibly not getting the same level of assessment or treatment, it's still your time and your expertise that they're paying for. So I'm glad I kind of did do that. It also meant running my classes on Zoom that I was saving money because I wasn't having to pay out rent on the gym space that I was using previously, and I could also be much more flexible in terms of when I ran the classes. So I've continued doing them on a Saturday morning, which is when I would normally have done them in the gym, but I've now added in an extra set of classes on a Tuesday evening because the gym was previously always been in use on a Tuesday evening and I wouldn't have been able to do the class then. But when my classes are getting busier and I had to set up another class, I just thought that was a nice time. They're 7:45 on a Tuesday evening, so most kind of kiddies are in bed by then or partners are home from work, so mums have got a hand with young children if need be. But yeah, that's a nice time. So it's just, you can be a little bit more flexible and work kind of things around you rather than the gym and clinic rooms and that. So that worked well. I also used to be very flexible. If people knew that they weren't able to attend a class, I would always allow them to tag that on to the end. But then you end up with kind of a space in class that you're not getting paid for. Whereas now, if people aren't able to attend, I send them the recording of the class. And then they've got that link that they're then able to, I think that the link's valid for a week, so they can catch up in the class in their own time. So I've never kind of had any queries about that, so that's worked really well. I have limited the numbers to the classes. So initially I kind of thought, oh, they're on Zoom, I can have as many people as I want joining these classes. And as I was getting more and more inquiries, but then I kind of thought, well, no, I've always liked that my classes are small and personable. And so yeah, I decided I've limited my classes at 10. I don't have any more than that. And the other thing that I do is I connect the laptop up. So I'm working from home at the minute, but I do the classes in my lounge downstairs and I connect the laptop to my big TV. So that way you can then see the people on your screen in a much bigger way. So you can look at the screen and you can kind of correct people's technique much better. So again, that's another reason why I wanted to keep the classes small. Otherwise your boxes on your screen are just too small and you can't see the people as well on screen. But yeah, I think that's kind of my classes in a little bit of a nutshell, really. So the main kind of how was that Gerard made it sound very glamorous earlier, that I've done something really, really special in terms of setting up these classes and running them. But the truth is I haven't. I just downloaded Zoom and did it. And I think 6 months ago, none of us had heard of Zoom, and now we're kind of on it most days. So I'm now I've had one inquiry recently of someone that just doesn't want to do Zoom classes anymore. They've had enough. But I know that my mums that I've got at the minute, they kind of keep saying to me, oh, are you going to move back into the gym? Like, what are your plans? But for my mums that I've got at the minute, Zoom is working so much better for them. No one wants to go back into the gym at the minute. The class can be much more flexible. They can be feeding their baby with a boob out while we're doing the introduction, and then they can kind of give baby away, and then they can kind of get involved in the class. They're not having to travel. They're not having, so the classes, especially for new mums, work really well online. I think it's the pregnant mums that are potentially wanting to get out and meet people by going to the face-to-face classes. But no, otherwise I really, really enjoyed doing them. I love the classes. So yeah, obviously I know Gerard said at the start that I've got to kind of shoot off my own childcare commitment shortly. But if anyone does have any questions about the classes, or they did want to run anything by me, Gerard shared my contact details earlier, but I'm on Gemma with a G at elitephysicalmedicine.co.uk. And yeah, feel free to send me any messages, ask any questions you might have. But if you are thinking about doing the classes, do them. They are brilliant. I really enjoy them.
Thanks, Gemma. That's brilliant. That's really really helpful. We know you need to whiz off. Gerard, are you planning a few questions just now while we've still got Gemma, or Gemma?
Yes, please. Yeah,
no, I'm fine for time if there are questions.
Could we maybe ask Gemma those questions now, because she's going, so anything to do with the classes, ask them now, would be great.
Okay, so we've got a question here about how long do your classes on Zoom last? Is it 40 minutes? Do you have longer on the Pro Zoom version, and how do you take your bookings? So kind of technical questions around that.
Yeah, so the classes themselves are half an hour long, because when I started doing the classes, I looked into kind of various pregnancy and postnatal classes in the area. And as a specialist physiotherapist, I felt that my classes had to be more expensive than what was on offer out there at the moment. So I did, in order to kind of justify charging a higher price for the classes, because I feel that I'm much more qualified than a personal trainer doing a mummy fit kind of class. I did go for a shorter length of time, so I do a half-hour class, which is £10 per class. So when I used to do them in clinic, I would have a 15-minute gap in between the two classes, so I kind of got one lot in and one lot out. But yeah, now, yeah, so it's kind of, so 10 minutes before and then 5-10 minutes afterwards, and then the next class then starts, and then so I do use Zoom Pro because I think you are limited to the amount of time, but also the number of people that you can have in the class. I'm not sure how many people you can have link into Zoom on the free account, but I think to do the classes it had to be the Zoom Pro, which isn't too expensive. It's £14.39 a month.
Yeah, it's really inexpensive.
It's a lot cheaper than what I was paying in rent in the gym.
Gemma, could I ask a question? Do you think is the attendance better at the online classes than the live ones because of the target group of people that you're seeing in their postnatal mums, busy lives?
Yeah, I have definitely found that the attendance is better, because I just think it's easier for them to fit in at home rather than having 20 minutes to drive to the gym and then do the half an hour class and 20 minutes back, plus or minus a bit of chat-in time. So it's definitely a lot less time out of their schedule, because like I say, some people, it's the pregnancy ladies that always kind of come for a really big chat first, and then it's the postnatal ladies that always rock up a little bit late and they're like, oh sorry, we're late, and they just literally dive in, do their stuff, and then off they go. But yeah, I found as well that because people haven't had things planned, so the attendance has definitely been higher.
Brilliant. Gemma, there's one more question on here which says, how do you accept payment for your sessions, whether one-to-one or online?
So my one-to-one appointments are all done through the clinic that I work for. I work self-employed at a clinic, so yeah, the reception team there deal with all the payments. So once I've seen an appointment online, I let the reception team know. The reception team will then invoice the patients. For my classes, it's slightly different. The patient has to pay up front for their block of classes. So I do a block of 6, 9 or 12 classes, and then the more classes they book on, they get a slightly discounted rate, but they have to pay in advance for their class booking. And then once they've sent me proof of payment, I then schedule a one-to-one Zoom appointment where I would just go through their health screening form with them. So if they're a postnatal lady, we'll go through kind of a very quick pelvic floor screen, the delivery, if they're getting any symptoms, what their goals are, what they're wanting to get back to. And then, I'll just kind of run through the exercise technique with them, make sure they're happy with what we're going to be doing in class so they can get the most out of it. I always use a loop TheraBand and a long length of TheraBand, and then a lightweight. So I've just been using like a 2-litre bottle of Coke at home as my lightweight. So I kind of make sure everyone's got the equipment that they need. So patients are getting their own equipment, so they can then practice the exercises in their own time. Yeah, so and then we schedule that little Zoom appointment, and once they're happy, we then I send them the link to the classes. Keep the same link. You can set a recurring meeting, so it's the same Zoom link and password that they need each time. And then I've just seen someone's asked about documenting notes. So I just do the same as what we did in we did for classes in the NHS. So I'm just using a paper-based template, and I keep a record of the exercises that they've done, and I date it each time. I tick the exercises that we did in the class that day. If they fed back any problems or concerns to me at the bottom, I've then just documented that in a little space and then date it and sign it. So then I've just got a folder of all my patient notes. So yeah, it's paper based at the minute for my classes, but otherwise in clinic our one-to-ones are all documented online.
Brilliant. There's just one more I'm going to steal you for, which is do you pay for the extra storage on Zoom?
So I just pay for the $14.39 a month. So I think it's just the Zoom Pro. I don't know if that's the extra storage one or not. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, so I pay for the extra storage because when we run the online courses, they have to be recorded, and that's like 8 hours a day. But the extra storage it's not expensive. I can't tell you how much it is, but it's maybe £20-30 a year. It's not an exorbitant amount.
Brilliant.
I think you'd only need that. You would only need that if you're recording. So we would have recorded probably 15 hours a week for maybe 10 weeks, but that's an awful lot of video. It's unlikely you'll get up to that amount unless you're doing a huge amount of classes. And
I think it gives you 10 hours free.
10 hours free. That's a lot.
So yeah.
And I'm just aware that you need to go. Can we squeeze in one more question?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And can I just do a quick reminder to people, can you upvote the questions you want to see answered and pop your questions in the questions, not in the chat, because it's quite hard monitoring both. So if you stick questions in the questions. So Gemma, we've got a question here from Jenny. Do people mind being corrected more publicly?
So I do try to keep it a little bit more subtle. So if I can see someone that's doing the wrong technique, I'll just be like, so I've got one lady that's always very hunched over when we do squats. So I always say, guys, just remember to keep your shoulders back, chest up, back's nice and straight. So yeah, I try not to pick on people too much. I try to and 9 times out of 10 it will work. As soon as I say those prompts, everyone thinks, oh, is she talking about me? And everyone suddenly squares up. But there have been times where I have said, oh, Gerard, if you can just make sure you keep your shoulders back on that one. Yeah, mind that posture. But yeah, I think just as I would in a normal class, I would still go around and check technique and make tweaks. So I think that patients want that, or the class participants want that, and they expect that. They're obviously paying for your time and your expertise. So I think if people need correcting, then it's part and parcel of being in a class, they can expect that. But yeah, I do try and do it a little bit more subtly. But if that doesn't work, then I go a little bit more direct.
That's great. I'm aware of the advancing time, so perhaps this is a good moment to say thank you so much for giving up your time this evening to be with us, Gemma. We really appreciate it. I know how busy you are, and you've just, it's been really helpful. It's been great to hear those top tips and how you're getting on with it. So thank you, really appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Brilliant. Thanks, Gemma. Thank you. Susanna, should we take maybe just 1 or 2 minutes just to stand up and stretch and move around, and then get Lorna to do her magic?
That sounds like a great plan. Let's do that. And in the meantime, have a look at those questions, everybody, and upvote. Click on the thumbs up for the ones you want answered. We'll try and get through as many as we can, but it does help us to know what's the priority for you. So let's just take a minute.
What, 2 minutes?
2 minutes. Great. Thank you. Over to you, Gerard. What's up next?
Okay, so really big thanks to Lorna for spending this evening with us. So Lorna, as I said, is based in Stoke. She's a an adult and pediatric neurological specialist, that she works in her private practice, and she's going to tell us really, and I'm amazed at this, how you can treat those very complex patients online. So, and then over to you, Lorna.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you very much, Gerard, for asking me to speak tonight. So Gerard got a hold of me really by me improving my visibility online, so that's what we'll come back to. So I own Positive Steps Physiotherapy, and before COVID, Positive Steps was a little team. There was 2 physios and 2 physio assistants, and we do have a clinic that we run in Stoke, but only about 25% of our work was in the clinic. Most of our work was home-based, school-based. We'd go to nurseries, we'd go to local gyms, into nursing homes. So really, we were out and about the majority of our time. And then COVID happened, and then lockdown happened, and we went from, so the week before things started to get a little bit dodgy, we had about 50 visits booked in, and the announcement came, and that was it. The visits were stopped. And my physio also worked for the NHS, so she was redeployed, so she disappeared, and I had to furlough my assistants, so both my assistants were put on furlough. So I then took on all of the Positive Steps caseload, and like everybody else, spent the first little while kind of in a complete state of feeling overwhelmed and not knowing what I was going to do. And I had to really quickly work out how we could keep our clients moving, because whether it be the children that we see or the adults that we see, they are really dependent on us for their rehab needs and like I say, to keep them moving. And very quickly we flipped to seeing them online. Now initially, quite a lot of them were really not very sure. And I'd say we got about 50-60% onto online videos very, very quickly. But then gradually over the first few weeks of lockdown, we kept in touch with everybody, or I kept in touch with everybody, and I contacted people by phone. Some people had kind of exercise programs that were sent, and we just touched base. But gradually we brought more and more people in, because they saw that, well, they needed more than a telephone call could give them, or they needed more than their exercise program could give them on their own. So I thought I'd go through a couple of kind of case studies, just like some examples of how we did what we did. And also, just to let everybody know, before COVID, if we ever had the kind of hands-on, hands-off debate, I was wholeheartedly hands-on. I would have sat here and said that, you know, I couldn't do my job hands-off, I just couldn't. So I have learned a lot, and obviously completely changed my mind. So one of the tiniest that we've seen over lockdown was a little girl who at the start of lockdown was 3 months old. So she'd had a neonatal stroke, and her parents had been told all along that the first year of your life is the most important. You know, that's what they were getting from the doctors, and it's so important what you do in those first 12 months, and you must make sure you do the right things. And then lockdown happened, and the whole of the services just backed away from her, and they were just left. I think they had the odd phone call, but that was about it. So mum got in touch with me about 3-4 weeks into lockdown. So the little one was just coming up for 4 months old, and mum was just in a state of panic. She was so anxious. She just didn't know what to do. She just felt like her little girl was going to get worse and wasn't going to, you know, do anything that she was needing to do. So what I've done quite a lot of is kind of offered, so a lot of that, the initial chat was over the phone, or mum had sent me an email. And so I offered an initial 15-minute free video consultation. And I've done a lot of that just to let them meet me, because these were new clients. And like you say, when it's the little one, that's their everything, I wanted them to meet me and to see if I was going to be the right fit. And also just to let me see if I felt like I could help. So we did that, and very quickly I could see that, yeah, there was loads that we could do. And I know a lot of paediatric physios have done similar, and have used kind of therapy dolls, but in lockdown, I didn't have a therapy doll, so you're going to meet, I had Joe. So this is Joe, and this was one of my boys' toys. And Joe was brilliant because he's got movable legs and movable arms. He was brilliant for allowing me to demonstrate handling and to demonstrate positions to encourage and where to put your hands and what they wanted to encourage next. What I could then do, and what I really made sure I did do, was that the parents then did it, and I was able to watch what they were doing and where their hands were, and I could correct and I could make sure that they were doing it right. And that just worked really, really well. And the little girl, you know, she's just, the progress that a lot of my clients have made is what's kind of blown me away, is that even with just video consultations, like I say, they've progressed and they've done so much. So this little girl is now 9-10 months, and she started crawling this week. And I've seen her only by video call, which is just amazing. And that is because we've been able to tell the parents what to do next. We've been able to tell them what the next stage would be. We've been able to correct them if they haven't been doing it right. And they've just felt really supported. And Mum recently left a lovely testimonial just saying how supported she had felt and how she knew what to do because, you know, I was able to tell her what to do. And that I think that reassurance that we give people, even when we're just, you know, remotely, I think we still give that, and we still can, and that's what we do as therapists, and we can still do that. So that was one of my youngest. And then one of my other quite complex kids that I've got, so he's 6 and cerebral palsy, all 4 limbs affected, and wheelchair dependent, can take steps with a walker, but dependent on his wheelchair. And he lives at home, just him and his mum. So he sees Dad, but Dad doesn't live with him. So in lockdown, Dad wasn't part of the picture. It was Mum and it was him. And I think what we saw as paediatric physios is that these children were almost abandoned. And that might sound a little bit strong, but they kind of were. So NHS physio backed off, NHS wheelchair services backed off, NHS orthotics backed off. You know, education was not great for a lot of these kids with special educational needs. And so, you know, these parents really did feel that they didn't have anyone to help. So he was a really difficult one because at first he didn't want to engage at all because Mum said he won't do FaceTime with Granny or Granddad, or he won't even FaceTime his daddy. He's not going to, you know, Zoom call with you. And I said, well, let's just see how we go. So again, we did the 15 minutes. He wasn't a new client, but we did the 15-minute. I just did a chat. We had a video call, and I said, look, let's just chat. Let's just, not physio, I'm not going to make him work. Let's just chat. And so we did, and we had a giggle, and we just had a bit of a laugh. And my big thing is in my business is about kind of finding the best approach that works for every individual client, whatever that is. And I still feel like I was able to do that over video call, and that's what I did with him. So we decided that we would set each other challenges. He set me challenges that I had to do, and I set him challenges that he had to do, and then we scored each other. And that worked so well for him. And he did 2 video calls every week, all through lockdown. We did shorter sessions because he wasn't going to stay engaged with me for longer. So we did 2 shorter video calls every week. And at the start of lockdown, he couldn't kneel up. He needed to feel help to kneel up. And he now high kneels independently. He can do other activities while he's high kneeling. His standings come on. And he's just gone back to school last week, and he's walking far further than he was before. So to see these children actually not just maintain, but actually progress and go back into school much better than they were. So he's been a really tricky one, but it worked really well. And then similarly with some of our adults, so we see quite a lot of acquired brain injury. So some of them we've had to work with the carers and get them on board. But one of my trickier ladies was a lady who is more independent. So her husband works, he's a key worker, so he was still able to go to work. So she was on her own. So video call was really interesting with her because she really wasn't very tech savvy, and it was really quite difficult. And we couldn't get her sons in to help because they were the ones that would have previously helped. So we had a bit of fun at first, and the video angles weren't the best. But I was still able, with practice, and again, we increased the number of times that we saw her so that she had that repetition. And for her, I used one of the systems that I am really passionate about. I use dynamic movement skills, which is a training methodology, which is just awesome for children, for adults, for so many different things, working on balance and proprioception. And she had that already set up at home, which was perfect for me. She already had the training mat, and I was able to use that beautifully. And with repetition, so we did less exercises. She didn't do as many, but we did higher reps of them so that she could retain that information, because she really struggled to retain. And she was one that absolutely we recorded and sent on, so that her husband could then share that in the evening when he got home from work. And I saw her on video call yesterday, and it was amazing. She's been on holiday for 2 weeks, and so she hasn't done any of her exercises. But when we started doing them yesterday, she remembered all of them. So she'd retained that information, even though she hadn't done them. So just, you know, the improvements that we're seeing again. And just like you say, that confidence that you can give people. And one of my favourite quotes from one of my clients' husbands was, "Lorna's not even in the room and you're doing better than you do for me." So just that confidence that we give our clients by prompting them and seeing how they're maybe doing things not quite right and correcting them has been amazing. So Gerard's already touched on this, but we absolutely are still continuing to see patients online. All my staff are back now, but I do 3 days a week face-to-face, and I do 2 days a week video calls. Sometimes it's not as kind of solid as that. I do half a day, but I try to do 2 full days video calls, 3 full days face-to-face. And one of the reasons, the biggest reason that I'm going to continue is that a physio that I know, and I'm sure a lot of you know as well, Evie Martin, who is behind Physio's Online UK collective, she said once that the best form of PPE is your screen. And that is so true. And I use that. And people have mentioned before in the questions, how do you sell it? I use that all the time. So at the moment, I'm telling a lot of my vulnerable clients that I don't want to come and see you because my kids have just gone back to school. I have no idea what's happening at the moment with regards to what's being transmitted. And if I can see my clients effectively over a video call, then I know it's safe. Because as soon as I step into the house, no matter what I'm wearing, there's a risk. And that is how I sell it. And so it's not a second best. This is the best for you at this time. And they trust me, and so they're happy with that. Another reason that I'm going to continue is what Gemma said. It's super flexible. So I haven't got the same childcare that I used to have. My clients who have got disabled kids and other siblings don't have the same childcare they used to have. And so for us being able to do, you know, a Zoom call at 3:45 when they get in from school and they've had a drink, it's brilliant. I've got families that used to travel an hour to come and see me. It would be a half day out of their school education for them to come to my clinic. Whereas now, we just do it, like you say, after school, and they will carry on like that. They're not going to waste that half day now, because what we are doing, it works. And if it works, why change it? So it's cost effective as well. People have touched on that already. Certainly when I started doing face-to-face, my video call days were by far the better days for me. Obviously now we're a bit more smoother with face-to-face, but even so, the days that I do video call, it's far more cost effective. I've not got the outlay. And a lot of my clients that I'm seeing now are new clients that we started on video triage, because that's what we do for all our new clients that all have a video triage, but they're still on video because it's working. So there's no need for us to see them face to face. So I think my top tips are just be enthusiastic and promote the video calls as the right treatment for that client. You know, don't think of it as a second best. And like you say, be enthusiastic about it. Don't be afraid. I think Gemma touched on it, we all made mistakes. You know, everybody had it through lockdown that you were trying to do video calls and you were trying to do all the right things and something would go wrong. And that's okay. And I think I spent quite a lot of time preparing my clients as well, because quite a lot of them were quite anxious, and like I touched on before, some of them, it took them a couple of weeks before they came into video calls. But just preparing them and what to expect and what they need to have ready and what kind of environment they need. And we're doing that really moving forward. So we're preparing our clients for the future, the ones that struggle more with technical things. We're trying to help them. We're trying to get family members involved so that they are tech savvy, because this is going to happen again, isn't it? You know, there's going to be local lockdowns. There's going to be clients of mine, certainly, that are vulnerable and are suddenly going to get really twitchy about people coming to the house again. Some of us might get locked down because our kids have got to isolate. You just never know. But I certainly am not twitchy about that. I know that when that happens, we'll just flip everyone back to online calls again, and I've got no issue with that. And the big thing that I'm now looking at doing is training my staff up as well, because there isn't going to be furlough next time it happens. So we're going to have to keep going. And so I want to make sure that my girls can give that, can do their exercise programs online as well. So yeah, that's my top tips really, and that's how Positive Steps went online.
That's great. Thank you so much, Lorna. That's really helpful. Gerard, have we got time for a question or two, or are we going to...
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. Let's take a few questions to Lorna, then, and Lorna's also staying, which is great. But let's, yeah, people want to ask Lorna lots.
So I could see that we've got a question from Jane saying, do you think your hands-off approach would be as good if that was how you were trained, or do you think years of hands-on has helped? So I guess it's asking about, having done all that hands-on in the past, do you think that's what's helped you to do the virtuals now?
Yeah, I think so. I think because having the hands-on is what gives you the confidence and the kind of expertise and the ability to analyse and observe. Because you're right, we can't do a lot of the objective, but you can still do the observation and the analysis. So I think having that confidence, but we give our clients that confidence, and you can still do that. But I guess, yeah, I mean, years of hands-on definitely has helped, I think, yeah.
Yeah. And a question from Georgina, what tips to prepare clients? Do you have any tips for them?
I think I just made sure that they knew what to expect. So just the basics, because some of my clients have never done a video call in their life, so they don't know what to expect. So I think just explaining how it's going to work, and that, there's nothing to worry about, and that, if you need them to have equipment there, or then just make sure they've got that and give them time. So some of them I had several phone calls, because I've got some quite elderly people, and then I say I've got kids that don't want to come near a screen because they're sick of it. That's the other thing, is that you had to mix it up a bit, because towards the end of lockdown, kids were getting really sick of, they didn't want to speak to anyone because that's how their life was. So you've just got to mix it up a little bit, but again, just make sure that they know what to expect, really.
Yeah. We've got some appreciation for you here, some fabulous positive stories from Lorna. Thanks, what an inspiration, which I would absolutely echo. We've got a question, what platform are you using, Lorna?
So I've used a few different ones. Kind of at the start, I used really whatever suited my clients, but I've moved much more towards Zoom. I have got some clients that use Skype still. And then I've done a few, so I use TM3, and I've done a few through their video kind of telehealth. So yeah, I say Zoom and Skype have been the main ones that I've used. Yeah,
that's great.
Gerard, can I ask Lorna a question? So Lorna, obviously this has been really successful. So do you have plans, I'm assuming you do you have plans to really push this out more so that you can offer your expertise to patients, children, adults who are living much further away from the clinic? Because I know to find a neuro specialist is quite difficult.
I am certainly going to carry on. And when I do all of my social media promotion, and when I'm doing lives and stuff like that, I talk all the time about wanting to still do it, because I think the other thing is that you can see far more. So I'm getting to the point where, from a waiting list point of view, which I don't really want to get into that, but if I'm seeing them via video, it's far easier to take them on and to see them and to fit them in. Whereas, so my geographical area that I previously visited is quite large, because I'm based Staffordshire, Cheshire, Shropshire. I kind of touch on all of them. So it makes far more sense for me to be able to see people from wherever. So I definitely will be still pushing it through all my, like say, my social media channels, and what we're going to come on to next about how we promote and how we market. Yeah, it's definitely going to be part of my future.
Can I just ask a question for Lorna and Gerard, really? But for those patients who can't use Zoom, do you do telephone or email consults? Lorna, do you have any thought on that?
I have done, so with the initial triage, for example, I've had some that haven't been able to, or we don't want to do it, or we're not sure, and I've done just a telephone kind of triage. But I haven't had anyone that's then not been able to embrace it, because it is really straightforward. And like I say, I've got an 85-year-old lady that lives on her own that has embraced, you know, video calls, and she really wasn't up on it before. But I say I'm making sure now this is the time to get everybody's younger relatives to make sure that their older relatives are up with it, so that when it happens again, or they've got to kind of, you know, isolate again, they're all safe and they can all just switch to video calls, because it's such a good skill to have.
I think that's my experience as well. I haven't had anyone who hasn't wanted to do that. I've had one or two people, more so probably the first few weeks in April, and I would say to them, well, you know, you need to download it, you put the code in, then you'll see me. I had one or two people, probably more so the early few weeks, where if the connection on their side dropped out, rather than panicking, I would say, okay, well, let's try it again. And then if it didn't work, it only happened a few times, I would just ring them.
Yeah.
And we would do it over the phone. And it was fine. And I think people were very forgiving, because I thought, oh, well, if it doesn't work, it just really looks unprofessional and it detracts from what we're doing. People didn't care. Now that doesn't really happen. But, you know, if they dropped out, which didn't, it happened once or twice, and it hasn't happened in the last few months, I would just ring them and we would mute. I could see them and we just talked on the phone, and it was fine. I think people were genuinely really appreciative of seeing someone, of getting help.
Yeah. We've got a question that's been upvoted. I'm not sure. It probably was a question for Gemma, really. So I'm kind of wondering whether Lou might know, actually. When you sent the link to the class to patients that have missed a class, how do you make the class only available for 1 week? Is that automatically done on Zoom? Lou, can you help?
I haven't got the answer to that one. I know that you can password protect it, but I don't know. So if anybody feels like putting an answer into the chat section, then that would be fantastic.
I think you can limit it, actually. I'm fairly sure on the when you make recordings available that you can put a date and until when. I'm thinking.
Oh, you can, yeah, you can.
And I think you can. Yeah, great, thank you. So Gerard, back to you, I think, for a little while.
Brilliant, excellent. So just a massive thanks to Lorna. Lorna, that was inspiring.
Thank you.
Right, so kind of before I hand it over to Gemma, we did a few kind of tips about how to do the online consultations, which has been kind of really cemented by Lorna and Gemma. I think what's really important is that it does take a decent amount of work to kind of promote a clinic online, to get that word out to enough people that you're doing online appointments. So what we did, or what I did, and with the help of some kind of friends, is we did quite a few kind of Zoom interviews. And the first couple I did were with two very good friends of mine who are two brilliant pregnancy postnatal trainers. And we would send a lot of our women to them, and they would send us a lot of patients, and I'd become quite friendly with them. And I did 2 interviews with them, one with Mandy, one with Kerry, and one of the interviews was me interviewing them about, so we kind of met for an hour. First half an hour, we did one interview. I interviewed Kerry, Kerry, what are you doing? How are you changing to online? Then the second interview, she asked me, well, how do you see someone? How do you see a postnatal woman online? how do you see someone who's got pelvic girdle pain online? So we did those short videos, half an hour each. She shared mine, I shared hers, and we shared them everywhere. And that kind of was a starting point to doing some of those Zoom videos. And then we did probably, at one point, we were probably doing about one a week, because they don't take long. They took 45 minutes, minimal editing, and then we stuck them on YouTube. So this is what we spent a lot of time doing. So this is back, don't worry, I'm not going to play them all, or we'd be here till tomorrow morning. But so what we would do is, so this is me speaking to Kerry about how to develop an online, how to treat a women's health patient online. So that's like about 23 minutes. Kerry's just asking me, you know, well, how would you treat someone with a tummy gap? How would you treat someone with pelvic girdle pain? So that's me talking about that. And then we put that in, you upload that video to YouTube, easy to do, very non-technical. And then I would share that on my Facebook. Kerry would share that. My colleagues would share that. We share that in some of the local community Facebook groups. We then put everything on Instagram. So we uploaded tons of stuff on Instagram. So that's the same video there. So you kind of get a lot of use out of the one video. Then we tweeted it. We linked it to the website. So people would then start to see those, videos in different places. They might see it on Instagram. They might, the yoga studio where I work might share it. They might see it on Facebook. But more importantly, because it was done with a postnatal specialist, all her clients saw it. Then we did more clinically focused ones. So we did did a couple around this one here. So Minera is kind of an international expert on diastasis. So that was like a lot of, that was aimed both at physios. So physios would be interested, so they would share that. That was good for the courses. But there's also loads of tips in there for women with diastasis and tummy gap. So we shared that quite heavily. And then also we did some really kind of clinically focused ones around male pelvic health, because obviously that was my interest, was male pelvic health. And this one here, I've got so this is a brilliant photo of me there. This is a friend of mine, Adrian. He's a male pelvic health physio in Reading, and we talked about the condition of hard flaccid. That's where guys get they get kind of erectile dysfunction, they get penile changes. It's a really distressing condition. We did that video, took 49 minutes, did it one morning. I think we did it at 8 o'clock in the morning. And we shared that in a lot of the pelvic pain forums, a lot of the hard flaccid forums. So we shared that quite heavily, both of us. And that generated a huge amount of work. Patients flowed in from that. But we also did some around musculoskeletal stuff. So I'll show you just one more. Because you're probably thinking, but this is all pelvic health. What's this got to do with me? So Glycoria is one of my colleagues in the university in Coventry, and Glycoria is doing her PhD in occupational health, and her focus is occupational injuries, but more in older members of the public. So, but what this interview was around was the effects of home working on low back pain, hip pain, thoracic. So we did that, kind of top tips about how people can cope at home working, and those are the patients a lot of us have seen. You know, the patients who were fine until they're working at a laptop for 8 hours a day on a sofa. So Ria talked about, well, what happens when you move someone from an office and get them working on the sofa 5 days a week? And that kind of started to generate a lot of interest around. People would share that because she's got quite a, she's got a lot of expertise in occupational health. She's doing a PhD in it. She's presented at the CSP, WCPT, European WCPT. So she's got quite a good profile. So that also generated quite a lot of profile for the clinic. And those are not difficult to do. You find someone, you interview them, you share it. And if you do it with someone else, you've got 2 people sharing it. And then probably a really good thing on Instagram is I kind of had met this lady called Janice from the States, and Janice has got my pelvic floor muscles. So I was at a conference in mid-February, just before COVID struck, at the American conference. I met Janice. We kind of really hit it off. Janice and I did some videos. Now Janice has got 50,000 followers on Facebook, 61,000. That's a huge amount. So Janice and I had kind of hit it off when we met up. Janice does really amazing public-facing pelvic health. It's quite striking, the stuff she does. She does lots of stuff with toys, like this one. So it really grabs the attention. This is kind of pelvic pain and intimacy. So Janice and I did some stuff together, really short interviews. And because she's got thousands of followers, that kind of drove our Instagram feed. So it's almost finding out, well, who can you work with that's beneficial to them, that's beneficial to you? And that was really good for what we did. Kind of really, and a bit like Lorna, Janice is inspiring. And if you work with inspiring people, they lift you, they drive you to do better things. Like. And then I'm just going to go back into the presentation. Did a few Facebook Lives. I'd never really heard of that. So probably did 2 big ones. Mandy was relaunching her business. Mandy builds postnatal community. She supports women postnatally. Amazing woman, passionate, gifted. She was launching her new group. So that was pre-COVID. That was when I was in her house with a pregnancy mannequin. So she did a Facebook Live where she had lots of mums in there, and I spoke for 25 minutes on what we were doing online. So the same again, that just generated a lot of profile. And this was another one I did for an American group. So the same again, the main reason I did that was because they had thousands of followers on Facebook. So it just drives your feed. This is Janice. So these were, and I was doing this yesterday. So trying to pick out what drove the clinic online, what generated patients. So things that generated patients, the videos with the postnatal trainers, because they reached postnatal women. We did some around pelvic pain and lockdown. What helps? How can we help you? The pelvic pain patients like that, they shared it. The hard flaccid, because there isn't much on that condition, it kind of was generating content. And anything around pregnancy postnatal. Now, I think some people say, well, why you clinics are reopened? Why bother? Why continue? And I think that's a trend that some people have done some, but now the clinic is open, it's forgotten about. It is very likely, I am an optimist, but it is very likely that at some point we will be in local lockdown again. Our clinics probably won't close because we are wearing PPE. So it's likely that our clinics will stay open. But if we go into a local lockdown, patients will be they'll be more anxious about going out and going to appointments. And that's going to happen. And I think if you have some strategy or confidence that you can do online work, it removes that massive stress or anxiety of what am I going to do if my clinic disappears again. I've got 4 children, 3 are in secondary school, 1 is in primary school. Schools reopened on Thursday. So far in the secondary school, 2 whole years are self-isolating. So that means their parents are out of action. In my primary school, 1 year is out. So that wipes out a lot of patients. So it may be that those patients would come to the clinic, but they can't because they're looking after young children at home again. Lots of people are still shielding. And lots of people have real anxiety about going out. Because someone put a really good question out, well, why are the musculoskeletal patients not coming to the clinic? So I had one lady last week who lives quite bizarrely on the high street, a 5-minute walk from the clinic. But she's been home working, she has not been out. She's been out once a week. She has real anxiety. And because she hasn't been out, she's got really awful back and hip problems because she's just inside all the time, sitting, working. And also what's starting to happen, it's almost like it's linked probably to the schools going back. Lots of people are getting caught up in track and trace. Lots of people are having to self-isolate, so they cannot come to clinic. And also, one of our physios has been caught up in track and trace, so she can't come and work, but she can do some of this work from home. And it looks like track and trace is going to wipe out a lot of people. Schools close, school closures are going to wipe out a lot of patients, local lockdown. So it is likely that there will be a lot of people who either don't want to come into clinic or who can't, but who will need help that we can offer them. Lots of people do very specialist work. So lots of people in musculoskeletal and sports clinics do very specialized work, but sometimes they don't realize how specialized they are. So it's good to widen that reach. So instead of serving the people in your local community, you reach out much further. So if you're a hip specialist, you're a TMJ specialist, you're a chronic pain, fibromyalgia, an ME specialist, you reach out further. It frees up clinic space. So that has a positive, if I'm, tomorrow I'll be online, that means someone else can work in that clinic space. I'm not wasting that space doing online appointments in there. And the public are now really used to this. People are used to using Zoom. Like at 6:15, my nephew was 18 in Dublin. So normally we would probably be there this weekend, but we did the birthday cake over Zoom. Now, a year ago, people would think you were crazy doing that. But that's the new norm. And also, I strongly believe that things are going to get a bit grimmer in the next few months. So there is a degree of future-proofing here. And also, if you know that you can fall back to a degree on this, it takes away some of the stress. How it works now. So today was a really nice example. So in clinic today, I had one chap who I'd seen. He was a male pelvic pain patient from near Swindon. I'd seen him online several times. He came to the clinic. So he was someone I'd seen online. He's now coming to the clinic. I saw another patient from south of Bristol, from near Frome. I'd seen him online. He's now coming to the clinic. But he's not going to come to the clinic the next time because he's going to university on the south coast. So I'll follow him up online. So that's that kind of mixed model of some online, some in clinic. Since we've gone back to clinic, some of the postnatal patients travel a decent amount of distance considering they have young children. So some of them, in the past, they would all come to the clinic, but that's difficult because they've got young kids or a baby. So some of them we will see online. So there's a real mixture, but some of the patients who live miles away will probably stay online. They might come to the clinic at some point. But and I think what my plan, oh yeah, this is some of the patients we saw last week online. So one was a lady who lives, basically, if I left the house now, I'd be in her house in 5 minutes. She lives around the corner from me. She's a pediatric consultant working in child protection, working at home, you know, doing meetings with 10 different people, holding her phone, writing up on a laptop, no IT support, really crap ergonomics. Why did she not come to the clinic? She felt she just was used to being at work all the time. Saw her, low back pain, hip pain, previously fit and healthy. That learning technologist, the woman who just had real anxiety, who didn't want to come in. Few postnatal patients, so some local, some from some distant patients. And I think what I'd like to do moving forwards is getting time to really, so we ended up seeing lots of patients online, but I'd like to really build that, a bit like Lorna, really invest time in building that online clinic more, and also explore a bit, because I was quite keen to listen to Gemma, you know, is we see lots of men post prostatectomy, and we always plan to run classes for them, never really got around to it, but maybe run those classes online. And I did some cancer rehab CPD in lockdown, and maybe run some of that cancer rehab, particularly the male cancer rehab, online. Because a lot of those oncology patients, for various reasons, will be reluctant to travel. Now, this is stuff that I've already talked about. So that's really my bit. So do we want to take some questions, maybe?
Yes, let's do that. We've just got a few minutes left before we need to wrap up. So there's a comment, I guess. Many MSK patients still want face-to-face treatment, and if we don't provide it, our profession will suffer and patients will go to osteos, chiros, sports therapists, etc., who will welcome them with open arms. But I'm guessing that you're talking about hybrid clinics, aren't you? You're not saying let's not do face-to-face at all. You're saying
I'm definitely not. Yeah, I'm definitely, whoever made that comment, I am 100% in agreement with them. This is really having a more flexible model to see those patients who, for whatever reason, can't get into clinic, see those patients who maybe are shielding, the schools are closed, they're self-isolating, they're patients who live a long way from the clinic, and also at some point it may be that we may find our face-to-face clinics become very, very quiet when things really explode in terms of COVID again, that second wave, like, so it's kind of insulating. But yeah, I'm definitely not promoting that we stop face to face. I'm definitely not promoting that. Definitely not, because I think that's what's happening in the health service. You know, I've really good, you know, close friends of mine, brilliant physios, and they're now sitting in a room doing 15-minute phone consultations all day. They're going to be doing that till the spring, and that's soul destroying work. That's not really online physio. That's kind of phone triage.
Yeah, absolutely. There's another question here which is asking whether you're actively advertising your services nationally as well as sort of locally, or whether you feel that the local is more important or as important.
Yeah, so we in terms of the male pelvic pain, definitely. So we promote that in some of the big pelvic pain groups, both male and female pelvic pain. So we don't invest a huge amount of resources in promoting it nationally, but we do post in some of those forums. We also have got relatively good Google recognition. So if people look for male pelvic pain, they'll probably come near us because there aren't many people who do it, or some of my colleagues. But what I would like to do is do much more of that, is to really push that online clinic so that we see more of those patients from all over the UK.
Lorna.
So that would be a plan. That would be a plan. What do you think of that, Lorna?
I was going to say, can I just pick up on a question that popped up about, it was an MSK person asking about how do you differentiate yourself? And obviously I'm not MSK, but my big thing over lockdown is about with your marketing and your promotion, you've always got to think about letting people see you and letting people see what makes you different and what makes you special. And that's why over lockdown, as much as I didn't want to do it, I kind of got into it. I did lives every single day. I did a Facebook Live every single day in lockdown. And my visibility just, it just soared. And it let people see who I was, what my company was about. And really, they then felt like they almost knew me a little bit. And I think you've kind of got to embrace that, and you've touched on that, Gerard. You've got to embrace the lives and embrace the interviews. And I've done quite a lot of, Physios Online UK have interviewed me, a local baby group interviewed me, I've got one tomorrow that I'm doing. You've kind of just got to put yourself out there, and that's when people then, they see you, and you're not the same as everybody else. You are different, and then they're going to come to you, and that's how you differentiate yourself for sure. And yeah, you've got to just embrace it, and it feels awkward at first, but you've got to do it.
It's really interesting listening to all three of you talking about the main thing that stands out is how brave you've been. And I know that there's loads of people out there as well who will have done exactly the same sort of things, but actually it is about stepping outside your comfort zone and being brave. And you've all done that amazingly. It's fantastic to hear about it.
I think you get used to doing the interviews, the Facebook stuff, and I think what drives a lot of us as physiotherapists is that we know that there are lots of patients there that we can help, and what drives all of us is reaching those patients, whether it's a young child with cerebral palsy, whether it's someone with male pelvic pain, whether it's someone with acute back pain, whether it's someone with a shoulder problem. If you're feeling a bit awkward about going online or people seeing you online or promoting yourself, you're thinking, well, if I do this, there will be people out there who are having a really crap time that I can really help.
I'm aware we're really running out of time. We've got a quick question, and then we'll wrap up. I'm sorry for those who your questions won't be answered this evening. What exercise software have you found to be good for musculoskeletal Zoom consultations, Gerard?
I have used, on recommendation of my friend Adrian, I have used Rehab Guru. It's very good, easy to use. So what I would do is, if you were the patient, Susanna, I would say, okay, I want you to do, I don't really know enough about shoulders, but I want you to do the press up with the balance cushion. It looks quite difficult. I'd say, I want you to do that one. I want you to do this one here. I want you to do that one lying back. Then I would email that off to you. Like, I don't know, there's loads of other ones, Physio Tools, there's loads of other ones. I'm not sure it matters, whatever one you're happy with, but I would, when I'm doing the consultation, I would say, okay, I want you to do these. And then I also want you to do, because you've recently had a baby and you're getting some abdominal pain and you've got a diastasis, we're going to get you to do some postnatal self-massage. So I'll go through that video with you, and then I'll send you that. So it makes that assessment really interactive.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, I think we need to draw this evening to a close. I think the thing that struck me, it's been so lovely to see the passion and enthusiasm from Lorna and Gerard for our profession and how you can innovate and do things even in different circumstances. And it's just been a real message of how much we can do online. Perhaps we've just got a task to let the public know that what we can do. So it's just a huge thank from Physio First, and on behalf of our delegates this evening, thank you so much for giving your time, for putting this together for us. I'm sure everybody here has taken away some pearls of wisdom and some top tips, and I feel like I've had a jab of enthusiasm in my arm. It's
excellent.
So thank you so much. We just
thank you all. Thank you, Lorna. Thank you, Gemma. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Lucinda. Thank you, Susanna. Really appreciate it.
And just before we all go, one last thing, and that is to say that we will be sending out a survey by email to you. And just in the same way that Gerard and Lorna and Gemma have given us some of their time this evening, if you could just spend a little of your time tomorrow just completing that survey for us. It's really helpful to have the feedback, to know how you found it, and to know what else you might like us to do in the future. That would be really, really helpful. So look out for that email landing in your inbox, and please ping it back to us. That would be really helpful. And so I think it's just left me now to say thank you again. Thank you all our attendees. It's been great to have all your questions. We've really appreciated your comments. I'm sorry if we didn't get round to yours. And just for me to say good night. So good night from all of us, and thank you again. Bye-bye.
Good night.